This is the Launch Station, the only place you need to look for all things onboarding, implementation, and customer success. Tune in for insights from industry experts every week.
Hey everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Launch Station. Today we have with us Brent Claremont. Brent has over 11 years of experience. He spent 7 years of that in customer success and, over 4 years in SaaS leadership. He was, part of the early HubSpot team in Sydney. And he was one of the founding customer success members over there as they went through a rapid growth journey in APAC. He moved to Boston in 2018 and became part of the onboarding team as a team manager, where he helped review the global CSAT, launch the service hub, and built a career rotational program at HubSpot HQ. He also got a top manager award as a leader in 2020. Congrats on that, Brent. After 6 years at HubSpot, he moved to take on the role of Director of Onboarding at Emotive, which is an SMS e-commerce platform. And they've done their Series B in 2021. We have Brent here. He's passionate about a specific topic that we're going to discuss today, which is career paths in customer onboarding. The topic for today really is about career progression and mobility in onboarding. So welcome to the show, Brent.
Shrey, thank you. And thank you for that lovely introduction. I think you do it better than myself, so I appreciate it.
Perfect. So we'll start with a fun question. What's your superpower at work?
Superpower. It's interesting. I think since being in the US, I would have to default to the Australian accent. Has been a big help over here on the East Coast. But no, really thinking about an area of superpower or something that I really enjoy, it's this topic. It's talking about customer success, onboarding in particular, and about all the amazing career opportunities people can have, which I don't think a lot of people truly understand unless you experience it yourself. So working with team members, professional development, and seeing them achieve their career goals, I could do that to the end of my career. Absolutely love it.
Nice. That's wonderful to hear. So, as one of the founding members of the customer success team at HubSpot, especially when they were going through this hyper growth phase, what was it like?
Yeah, so I was very, very lucky to get an opportunity at HubSpot in Sydney when we were growing. And I think I didn't realize how important it was at the time, because HubSpot was very, very big in the US, in the mature markets. And when I joined, there was 15 salespeople, and I was one of the 3 customer success team members, sort of bit of that founding team in APAC. And I hadn't heard of HubSpot. And what I did was I obviously looked on the website, because I was really looking to get into relationship management at that stage. And I found the culture code. Huge asset for HubSpot these days, millions of views. And I read it and I was passionate about joining customer success. I actually emailed one of the founders, Dharmesh Shah, in the US saying, hey, just absolutely love this culture piece. It's amazing, the best thing I've seen. And he actually replied to me within 6 hours, and he was based in Boston. I think that, to me, you don't expect one of the co-founders to respond to you. So I was hooked from there. In regards to APAC and what it was like, yeah, looking back, it was one of the most rewarding times of my career. Obviously, different stages of the career, different excitement levels, but it was about different things. We went from 17 people to over 200 within 3 years. We opened up our first official office in Sydney. We then opened up the Singapore hub for services, then also Tokyo. So the culture was shifting every couple of weeks and months because we were adding new people, and it was amazing. It was a great experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been through a sort of hyper growth journey as well, and definitely it's one of the best teachers. And growth is enjoyable always. When did HubSpot decide to have a separate customer onboarding function? And did you think it was the right decision at the time? Do you see any advantages with having that split between success and onboarding?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, because I've seen in a lot of SaaS companies where onboarding is taken out of customer success, and they kind of fit in, but they kind of don't, because it's a cost center, of course. And then the retention, whether it's gross or net retention, is also held by the CSM team. So I've seen a lot of differences. I've also seen some really successful SaaS companies that actually have the CSM doing both. And it really depends on the industry, how long the platform takes to integrate, and a few of those different pieces. We had the benefit in APAC at HubSpot because the playbook had been done. It had already been built in the US. So they actually split, I think it was called an inbound marketing specialist, an IMS at the time. I think that was sales. And the names changed a lot, but fundamentally the breakout between customer success and onboarding happened a while ago. But in APAC, we were the first, like I said, the customer success team there, but we had a lot of brilliant expats come over who had seen the playbook. They've seen it happen before. So we already knew that split was going to happen, but until we opened up Singapore, where a lot of our brilliant onboarding team was built from, we were wearing a few hats there. So I know it's kind of like a long answer around that, but the playbook was built in the US, and we kind of had to be a little bit scrappy until we had those people on the ground.
Got it. What are some criteria you would recommend people think about? Like, what should they look at to decide, hey, is this the right move for me at this stage? Any inputs you'd have on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I had the same pivot myself when I was going from, I used to be in sales, account management, then customer success, then to onboarding. And I have two great mentors. One is Tim Cormier, who's currently a VP of customer success, and then Julie Hogan, who's also a VP of customer success and growth. And they had initially hired me in Sydney, and it was very much around hire for character, train for skill. So that was a brilliant methodology to bring people in. That being said, the key pieces are always helpful. Being very, very organized, especially in customer onboarding. You need to understand you've got several moving parts, people coming into the process, people leaving, different migrations, different technical issues. So that project management and timing is really, really important. Technical knowledge is excellent, but that again is a skill that can be trained. And then on the other side, I think really making sure you can build strong relationships. I know that is very customer success, CSM heavy, but I think it's a brilliant part for customer onboarding as well. And one of my favorite lines that I stole from some talented people is always, I want you to like me as your onboarding specialist, but I want you to respect me most of all, because my job is here to challenge and push you to get results. And as soon as you say that on a call, you can feel that relationship change. So relationship building, project management, and time management are some big pieces I'd advise.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And I'm going to steal that from you for our team to use.
Yeah, I've stolen it. You can steal it. It all goes around.
Sure. So, when you think about customer onboarding as a function, right? I think it's maybe even 10 years ago, you had professional services teams working on, software implementation projects. But I think onboarding is taking its own sort of, journey. How would you describe the evolution of customer onboarding as a function over the last few years?
Yeah, it's a really keen question, because what I thought it was when I first started a long time ago was it was very technical. Very, very, very technical. It was very teach. Click here, do this. I'm going to get you through this very, very quickly to make sure the robust systems are integrated and you're sitting in a really, really good spot. And I specifically saw this at HubSpot in my little over 3 years when I was in the US as a manager, and I've seen it at Emotive as well. The core competencies for the roles started to shift, and the mentality that I mentioned before from very, very technical to project manager started to shift. And I think that really leans on the relationship side, being able to challenge, being able to be direct with people. And that has become more prevalent, those types of skills married in with a bit of the technical. You know enough to be dangerous on the technical side, but you can run a project, you can challenge customers and let them know that this is a partnership. It's a two-way street. And I think that mindset shift from leadership and the teams has been very prevalent recently, which I'm a big fan of.
Makes a lot of sense. I think the project management and, as you said, challenging the customer with like either a prescriptive approach or a consultative approach seems to be the direction things are headed.
Agreed.
Cool. As someone who's built these teams now, do you have your way of thinking of how you would go about creating an A team for an onboarding function? Like, what's your formula?
Yeah, so I think my first year in management, I learned a lot. I failed a lot. And I think that was very important for me as a leader to go through that, so I understood what worked and what didn't. I think everyone has that trial by fire as a first-time leader. And I think one of the main pieces is psychological safety. And what that really means is trust. So building that trust with your team that they can give you feedback as a leader and you can give them feedback. And it's coming from a place of, I want to make you a better consultant. I want to make you a better onboarding specialist. So me as a leader, psychological safety, trust is the number one priority is when I start a job or when I look to build that. What's worked really well for me in my years at HubSpot and what I'm really looking at Emotive is now is we've got some brilliant people in the teams, is having an eclectic mix of backgrounds. And what I mean that is not only from different areas of the world, different backgrounds culturally as well, but also different experiences. And that gives you unique perspectives on how to approach existing problems and challenging the status quo of playbooks and how you onboard. And I give you some real quick specific examples. In my team, just before I left HubSpot, I had 2 to 3 salespeople. I had 2 brilliant support team members. I had people who initially came from sales. So I've mentioned the sales part. I'm from product as well. And then we had some long-term customer success onboarding specialist experience. So we had the foundational knowledge from customer success and onboarding. We had that sales challenging, forecasting, direct nature. And then we had the support team who had that. They were the technical backbone of my team. And they all mixed and matched for different strengths and weaknesses. And then the salespeople became more technical. The support people came more project management and challenging. And the core customer success team had a nice blend. So not only did we have different perspectives on how to improve the playbooks, we had people from all different backgrounds. And that was what built an A team, in my opinion.
I mean, my memory goes back to the book Range, which talks about how, teams, when you put a variety of people together, more diversity leads to better ideas. So it looks like that's something you've experienced firsthand.
Yeah, HubSpot was brilliant at that. They really made sure we focused on that and not just saying, oh, this is the type of person you've done onboarding for 3 years. Excellent, come on in. It was just, they wanted to challenge that homogenous group of thinking. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
When we chatted earlier about this, you did mention, internal mobility as something that you've really encouraged and made happen in the organizations you've been part of. So how do you create a culture that's conducive for internal mobility?
Yes, this is something that I thought about a lot at the time. And it's something that we're creating really, really well at Emotive now. And Emotive has been around for a little bit over 3 years, nearly 4 years. So very, very early days. Whereas HubSpot, I think it has recently had their recent birthday. I think it was 15 or 16 years. Don't quote me on that. Very, very long time. And there's a few different pieces. One, having a brilliant HRBP. So having that person to really, really understand where internal mobility is available, understanding what past individuals have done, and just building out that path. So for example, like you need to be in the role for 1 year, have a great standing with your manager, hitting excellent metrics, and then you're available for an internal mobility opportunity, making sure it's the right thing for the individuals. Also understanding leadership. So again, I made sure that we had some brilliant support team members come over and I knew they were at the right time. They did 1 to 2 years. They were looking for a career change, and then we can keep those talented individuals in the company. And I think it's some managers shy away from, I don't want to mention another job because they won't be focused on their existing job. I disagree with that. I think you can approach it in a way where you get excited about someone's longer term career and understand people may change their role 6 to 7 times in their lifetime, and you want to be a part of that. So that's really exciting. And I can give you one specific example. Brilliant team member of mine, Brittany Whittington. She was an excellent onboarding specialist. She got promoted to senior onboarding specialist, but she wanted to try something different. And we had close alignment with our sales engineering team. And she was one of the first team members to make that transition. And we made sure she was learning the sales methodology. She was also understanding more technical, how to code slightly to deal with those bigger prospects. And she managed to get that opportunity. And not only with HubSpot, she got there, she actually managed to move to Berlin and help open our Berlin office, which is something that's really, really special. So that's a good example of strong internal mobility, leadership aligned, and supporting an employee.
Nice. What's your take on CSM onboarding, like people moving from one to the other and, both ways?
Yeah, it's funny because it's not, I wouldn't say it's a dichotomy of skills, but I always position like sales is transactional at times, especially I've been a BDR for a while, very, very transactional. And then you have onboarding, which is less transactional, but depending on the company, you have them for 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 30, 60, 90 days. And good example of HubSpot with some of the customers. And then you have CSM, and that is pure relationship building. And I think there's a lot of overlap between those. I'm a big fan of it. I've seen some CSMs come over and do a brilliant job at onboarding. And I've also seen some onboarding specialists transition to CSMs and done an amazing job as well. It's just the question I always ask that individual is why? Why are you looking to change? If somebody says, oh, I want more money, or oh, I'm not liking this role, they typically aren't the right motivations for me. If it's more around, oh, I want relationship building, I want to be more consulting, that ticks the box for me for onboarding specialists going over. And the other side is CSM saying, I want to work with different businesses. I want to really get an understanding of how the product be a bit more technical, music to my ears, because an example at HubSpot and Emotive, if you work in customer onboarding for 6 months, you have worked with 100 to 150 different types of businesses. And for yourself and your own professional development and pitch, it's so strong. So I'm a big fan of it, if done right.
Got it. Would you recommend CSMs do onboarding first before getting into a CSM role, or do you think it's not necessary for everyone?
It depends on the business type. I think it's a great idea. I'm slightly biased, obviously being in customer onboarding for quite some time now, but you'd understand the honeymoon period of when a customer comes in, they've just signed their contract, they're so excited. It's like, welcome to HubSpot or welcome to Emotive. And that's the time you need to build the relationship and set the expectations. For a CSM, knowing how they're coming through the door, I think that is very, very helpful. And also just a little touch bit more technical side there. I'm a big fan of it. At Emotive, we were going through a massive growth at the end of last year. And instead of throwing bodies at the problem, of course, that's where we want to be very smart. We think of people, process, and technology. A lot of the CSM new hires, we actually brought them in and trained them to help with onboarding for the first month or two, and then we'd move them to their current job. And that was really, really helpful, not only to address the capacity planning and that huge growth, but also for the professional development of CSMs. Enablement was key there, was very key. So instead of a couple months training, it's like, excellent, we'll do that in a couple of weeks for you. So there was a bit of push and pull, but I think the perspective is very, very helpful.
Got it. So, when we look just at customer onboarding and people who have picked that as their, current role and function, how do you develop a program for career pathing effectively for these individuals?
Yes. So I think there's two different ways there. It's one is getting people to understand the possibilities that come with that. Because, if you ask me, like, what do you want to do with the rest of your career? I want to be in leadership, I guess. Maybe I don't have that really crisp answer of this is what I want to do for the next 10 years. And that is okay. From the business side, I think it's really good to, like I said before, understanding what parameters you need to hit before you could potentially move internally if a great opportunity comes up. And on the other side, I think it's on leadership to really invest in that professional development, having those skill sets to better them. And I can give you an example. We did bring something I like to do in team meetings is I brought one previous team member who used to be an onboarding specialist, actually in Sydney. She was she rotated in. Her name's MK Getler Poroskova, just got married. So congrats to her. I have to pronounce her last name correctly. She is now the CMO at a company, Loop and Tie, I believe. And she was an onboarding specialist. And I think she had such a brilliant career trajectory of, she did a patch in Sydney to help grow that office. She came back to the US for HubSpot and worked on all these great things. And that all started from her being an onboarding specialist. So I found it helpful in my career, and I believe the team members did, of like, wow, onboarding specialists can reach to so many different things in my career. That's important for the why, but also at the company, I think it's important to have those structures in place of how you need to achieve, how you need to work before the internal mobility can come into place.
All right. So do you actually have like a formal leveling within the team where you're saying, hey, you're, at the beginning of your journey as a customer onboarding specialist, you're at level 2 now because you've gotten yourself equipped really well at these skills. You have the technical part, but you can get better at XYZ. Is that something that you have actually mapped out internally?
Yes, and that's a brilliant little nudge and a segue that I needed, because we definitely do, and it's around core competencies. So HubSpot did it very well a very long time ago. It was level 1, level 2, senior 2, principal, and we had some people who were amazing onboarding specialists, and they said, I don't want to manage people, I don't want to move roles, I love doing this. And we had those career pathing levels built out so they hit principal, the highest level of onboarding, and that is their job. That is their profession, and they're mentors, and they just do such a good, they're a shining example there. Where core competencies, and actually before I jump to that, I'll explain it. Having those levels is really important because for a rapidly growing company, it gives you those levels to improve, and it gives you that timeline so you can start to prepare. HubSpot did do a shift in the end, and we sort of changed the titles to make sure they matched nicely, but it was always paired in with core competencies. And what I mean by that is it would have roughly 15, give or take, skill sections, and it would have learner, developer, developing, contributor, and master. And that wouldn't only be applicable to the job you're doing, but also professional development. I'll give you an example. Impacting methodology, communication, time management, technical skills. So you had all these lovely categories that your manager would do probably twice a year to give people room to grow. And you would collaborate with that individual to get their opinion on what they really are passionate about, areas they want to improve. And that to me was the best professional development part, because professional development sits here and career sits here, because that will be a result of the efforts, but this is going to help you through your entire career. So the core competencies really is where the rich conversations would have.
So if I were someone interested in joining your team, how would I go about evaluating if I'm a good fit for the role, like for a customer onboarding role?
Yes. It's interesting because, like I said before, we want those different perspectives. I think there's a lot of collateral out there, a lot of brilliant videos to understand what customer onboarding is. And I think when you have a discussion with a recruiter, with anybody, it's like, tell me the good and tell me the bad. Like, don't sell me the dream. I want to hear about the stressing points. Stressing points, having several different customers at once, being okay with people being unhappy about certain pieces in the product, certain timelines, and it is completely on you. You have to own your book of business and run that. That's a stressor. On the other side, working with 100 different businesses in 6 months, you can't get that kind of experience anywhere else in a role. So they're kind of my 2 points there. So yeah, dialing it back, I'd say 1, understand what the role is. 2, understand what you're looking to get out of your career. Is it relationship building? Is it technical? Is it project management? And does that fit into it? And then make sure you align with the company, their mission, their goals, their culture. And that to me is a nice recipe of saying, should I apply for this role? Would I be a good fit? And I can just go give you some examples. I did take some notes here, and I've had people that, for example, I've had Kate McCaffrey, who's a great manager. She was an onboarding specialist, brilliant leader. She then became a manager at the end of that. I talk about Brittany Whittington. She became a sales engineer over in Berlin. I had Ryan Janity, who also became a manager from the team. Another person, Erin Woods, who is a very talented onboarding specialist, who is now principal very early in her career. So it just shows you that people coming from different backgrounds, different educations, different experiences, you do not know where it's going to lead. So don't try to limit yourself if you don't think you fit the exact bill, if that makes sense.
Got it. Cool. Here's a question from our community, right? What's the most interesting move in or out of onboarding that you've seen?
Oh, okay. Moving in or out of onboarding. This is a really good one. I'm trying to think. I've had people completely change their career trajectory. Completely. I've had some people that have gone, you know what, I am going to go be a bartender. And I'm going to be happy with that. And they make a complete change because it's what they want to do with their life. I had an individual who did onboarding for quite some time. And I believe they ended up to move to sell specific golf equipment. Like it was a really, really big pivot. Let's see some other ones. A lot of it is in customer success and to other SaaS companies, but I'm never surprised. I think what I'm seeing more of these days is people making decisions less based on, like, salary is important, 100%, especially in the current economy, but people are making more choices about culture and happiness for themselves. And that's something that's I think is brilliant. People making decisions for the happiness of them and their families. So there's 2 sort of very far left examples, but I love hearing about those. I'm sure there's some brilliant ones out there.
Perfect. Cool. We move to the next section of our podcast now, Brent, which is a rapid fire round. What's one book or movie that inspired you?
Yes, I think one book that I'm coming back to now, it was by Maddie Chapman, and it was all about Jacinda Ardern. And it was the most powerful woman in the world. And I thought it was It was a great read just about her background, different politics in New Zealand that I candidly should know more about from the home region. I just thought it was a great story about how somebody with humility and empathy in a world of people being very direct and challenging in politics, heavily by men. I thought it was a great story. So I thought that was a really, really good book. And I have to thank Mum for sending that over to me.
Oh, nice. What's a customer onboarding goal you have for yourself in 2022?
Yes, I think a goal that I have for myself kind of fits into my team, and it fits around what we're talking about, of challenging the typical stereotype of onboarding. That technical, we're very teach, on to the next one. Yep, over the fence, we'll sort of hand that over. And I really want to lean on the relationship side and the delight phase as well. So people giving G2 reviews. I think there is nothing higher. When someone goes, I love working with this individual, this company is brilliant, I'm going to be going there. And that really feeds into the consultant mindset. So I know it's a bit of a less tangible one, but I really want to focus on the team of Emotive is really building that world-class onboarding experience where people remember that experience. So it's the consultant mentality. I'd really love to support the team and get them there on.
Awesome. We actually started doing this where in our onboarding plan, right? The last step ends with, hey, we got you to value and now G2 review time.
It is, and it's people, you feel awkward asking, and it's like, by the way, Shri, I had such an amazing experience. You're an amazing onboarding specialist. That's really, really good. By the way, if you had such an amazing experience, and I worked really hard for you for the past 90 days, I don't feel obliged, but if you do, I'd love a G2 review. It feels a bit awkward at the time, almost salesy in a way, but I think we need to embrace it because onboarding specialists work hard. And it's the honeymoon period, so I'm a big fan of it.
Perfect. We've sort of come to the end of the show. What advice do you have for fellow leaders who are in the process of building a career pathing program for their onboarding teams?
Yeah, I mean, I had really strong mentors, like I mentioned before, having Tim Cormer and Julie Hogan for several years, giving me their advice from onboarding from an international perspective was really, really helpful. So having mentors, especially outside of the company, that has helped challenge my status quo on how I think about career pathing. Having examples of people who have been onboarding and where they've gone has been very helpful to inspire the team, but also people who have developed an entire career to onboarding. I think a lot of managers, including me at times, thought, I don't want to talk about the idea of maybe a team member eventually wanting to leave onboarding. I say challenge that sort of insecurity that I definitely had of how can I talk about this person's career, where I can improve them professionally. So when they leave, they think I had such an amazing time in onboarding, or they stay in onboarding and keep developing those brilliant skills. So mentors and really challenging that status quo of, I should proactively talk about career. I think that's a big part, I'd say.
So this has been great chatting with you, Brent. If there's anything else you want to add around, career pathing or customer onboarding in general, feel free to. I'm going to leave it to you to bring the show to a close.
Of course, you've kept me on my toes here. I appreciate it, and Sri, thank you for you and the whole team for planning all this. I think it's brilliant. Anybody out there with your leaders, onboarding specialists, I'd be happy to chat to you. Obviously, time is very interesting. I'm over in Boston, but I genuinely love hearing about career development, and there's always a different perspective I can hear from somebody else. And I think as leaders, the more we proactively discuss that, whether it is obviously in SaaS is a big topic here today, I think it's really helpful to connect. And I think the Slack group and everything that Rocket Lane does has shown me another side of wow, there are more customer onboarding leaders and professionals out there. And I think the role itself is I've got my book of business. I do have my team, but I need to focus on my book of business. But having a community around that's why I was so excited to come on today is something really special. So I'd love to connect with anyone who wants to discuss it. And then of course, through Rocket Lane is a great example.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you so much, Brent.
Awesome. Sri, thank you so much for having me.